Today on Vintage HLC Show and Tell, we're going to look at the Wild Rose Decal treatment. This pattern was used by Homer Laughlin from 1930 to about 1955, so it has a roughly 25-year run. So we'll look at an example of this decal. There's a large sprig that's pinks and whites, greens, and even blue. It starts out on the well shape, and I don't have a piece to show, but I do have this picture from the morgue at the company, and it has the treatment number W7133. So it's on the well shape, vellum glaze, platinum edge. And this is something that happens quite a bit with Homer Laughlin patterns, that it starts off on one shape, but goes on to be used on other shapes and is more popular on those later shapes than the original one. So we don't see too much of wells with Wild Rose, but we do see many of the others. It was also used on Century. It was a special order. The treatment number was TS2. It had green verge line. Then it was used on Yellowstone. And this is an advertisement from 1931 from a Butler Brothers catalog. And we see the Yellowstone shape with the Wild Rose decal, and it says, vellum glaze octagon shape, 2 Wild Rose spray decorations, bright natural colors. So you could get a set, or you could get open stock of the pieces shown here. So that, with vellum and platinum edge, was Y211. With gold edge, it's Y220. And we have an example here, covered casserole with the gold edge and vellum glaze, and it is dated 1937. We also have ivory Yellowstone. If you want to know the difference between vellum and ivory, you can probably see it in the video. I think it was video number 7 where I talked about the different neutral glazes at this time, which would be 20s and 30s. So we have a 9-inch plate. This is ivory with platinum trim. This is treatment number Y222. This comes from 1941. And the 13-inch platter in the back. Then it was used on Virginia Rose, and it's probably more common on Virginia Rose than any other shape. There were 4 variations. The first one is GCM3, which was an exclusive for GC Murphy. Very difficult to find. It has green edge line. I don't have an example. Next was VR134, which has 2 sprigs, but no edge. I don't have an example of that one. The third one, which is the most common, is VR269, which is 2 sprigs with platinum edge, and that's what you see here on the table. So we have a covered casserole. There's your platinum edge. This comes from 1947. 10-inch plate. We'll go ahead and look at the dates on all these. 1947. 9-inch nappy. 1952. And then a covered sugar. 1948. Then we have kitchen craft. So I want to talk about this piece for a moment. We're going to look at the marking. This has platinum edge. Probably meant to go with our Virginia Rose set. As I said, this is the most common of all the forms of Wild Rose. But this particular example, I don't know if that's going to show up, has a Fiesta marking. So they use a Fiesta mold to make this particular piece. And what I suspect happened, I'm trying to do this one-handed so I don't break anything here. Let's see where it is. There's a little chip that occurred during production, and then it was glazed over. So rather than put this with Fiesta, they probably just set it aside to be used with decalware. So just because it's marked Fiesta does not make it a piece of Fiesta. But there you have it, the Fiesta Kitchen Craft marking from a Fiesta Kitchen Craft mold. But we see the we see the regular Kitchen Craft back stamp, but it's all smudged from where it hit the rings. But that's a little curiosity, not necessarily worth a whole lot of money. So if you find decaled Fiesta Kitchen Craft, that's probably a good reason why they didn't dip it in a solid color and they just used it for decalware instead. Eggshell Nautilus. This is treatment N1697, 2 sprigs with gold edge. And it comes from 1942. So Wild Rose was also used on Liberty, though I don't have an example. 2 sprigs, no edge line, treatment number L631, I believe. And then we have several examples where it's used as a scrap print on specialty ware. We've already probably seen these in previous videos because I've talked about specialty platters and specialty bowls, where if there was an imperfection, they didn't just use it in regular dinnerware, they just use it scrap print and some spray trim, and then they'd have a piece of sellable ware. It's sort of the similar situation what we just saw with this kitchen craft ball jar. So here you see all these black specks in the glaze. So they would not have used this with a Nautilus set. They just put some scrap print and some spray trim, in this case is turquoise trim, and just made a specialty platter out of it. In this case they used the Wild Rose Decal. So this is Nautilus Ivory, not Nautilus Eggshell. It comes from 1937. And here we have a little 36's bowl from Empress. It's dated 1933, has orange luster. So orange luster was used at the end of Laughlin Art China about 1910, 1911, up until about 1934-35 when you start to see these wash trims take over. So this is pretty late for a piece of luster. And finally we see a century platter with our Wild Rose Decal in the center and these platinum stamps in the corners. Again, this is a factory second, so rather than use it in a piece of century dinnerware, it becomes a specialty piece, and it comes from 1933. So that's a little bit about Wild Rose. This is one of my favorite decals that Homer Laughlin has ever used. If I had a top 10 list of decal treatments, this would definitely be on it. I think it's rather sophisticated for the time period, because when you look at the late 1920s and early 1930s, you see a lot of stylized decals. Some of them almost look cartoonish, but this one has a nice realistic look to it, very sophisticated looking with its colors. So I'm sure we'll see this decal treatment again. Wild Rose by Homer Laughlin. Next time we're going to look at Homer Laughlin ashtrays.